Yo, what's up? Welcome back to Say Less with Kaz. I'm your boy Kaz. Thank you so much for subscribing on all social media platforms, all streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, everybody. Appreciate you. We're doing this 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. Expect yo pods to be filling up with more Kaz content. Obviously, this past weekend was WrestleMania. The first time ever. It went 2 nights. It was too big for one night. Obviously, everything going on in the world, they were hell-bent on putting this show together and giving the people a distraction. Anything is better than reading the news right now or reading social media because it is depressing as fuck. But today's episode, we do a deep dive into everything that took place this past weekend on night 1 and night 2 with my good friend, the incomparable Robin Lundberg of Sports Illustrated. He is an incredibly talented human being and writer and interviewist. And also, for the first time, we got some video. So shout out to the good folks at StreamYard for putting together this sort of homemade studio deal that we're going for right now. And if you like the audio, but would love to watch video and watch the interactions in between the guests and myself, you could subscribe on youtube.com/Kazim. That is my YouTube page. You can launch. It's just been launched. Technically, I've had it for like 6 or 7 years, but I've never really used it. So there's no time like the present to get this thing popping. So shout out to everybody on Discord for getting that going. We're going to get some Twitch stuff going. Patreon, you guys are free for the month. Obviously, everybody's going through some tough times, so the last thing I want to do is take anybody's money. I just want to spread some content. This sort of thing has been extremely beneficial and therapeutic for not just myself, but the friends I get to talk to each and every day about, just this incredible time we're all living in right now. So if you get anything from this and you get to enjoy your time and just not think about death and viruses and destruction for, the next couple of minutes, I think we've done our part. So like I said in the first episode, we're building the show brick by brick. So this will be the first week you can catch these episodes live on my YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Kazim. Emilio, hit the motherfucking music. Joining me today, man, is a guy who I've been a very big fan of for a long time, an incredible writer. You can check his daily content on Sports Illustrated, as well as many other platforms and places. His name is Robin Lundberg, and we're going to talk all things WrestleMania all this past weekend for the first time ever, obviously, under extremely different circumstances. WrestleMania went on as scheduled, without a crowd. But, for the time being, it looks like sports everywhere might be taking a bit of cues from Vince McMahon for the next couple of months and probably a year until this entire COVID-19 epidemic is up and out of here, because, man, it is really messing up a lot of things right now. But let's not get into that. Let's talk some wrestling. Right here is my good friend Robin Lundberg of Sports Illustrated. Rob, how you living, bro?
We'll do it live. I don't bring the branding with me everywhere I go. I think
we need it.
It was Bill O'Reilly. I think you said Bill O'Brien, the Texan.
Bill O'Brien. I get my white guys mixed up, Robin. It happens, bro.
Yeah, I mean, we all look alike, right? But when you talk about, do it live, actually, the WWE did it taped, right? And I got to tell you, man, I was just glad to have something. We need some hope, some sort of outlet, because things obviously really suck right now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that was going to be my first question to ask you. And you put out this great video for Sports Illustrated just a few moments ago. Are you glad WrestleMania went on as scheduled?
Oh, 100%. And leading into it, I understood why people would be hesitant. I understood why the performers would be hesitant, Roman Reigns in particular, right? We're all sort of trying to figure it out. But there's this balance of when you're being cautious and doing everything you should do versus also persevering in a sense and continuing to live life. So I sort of take it as a hopeful, a beacon of hope, if you will, that maybe there can be some version of normalcy at some point soon. Maybe you could take the NBA and have them quarantine like they've talked about in Vegas and other ideas of that ilk before we're ready to go full blast, because it does seem like it's going to be a while before fans can be in attendance.
I agree, man. It feels like, and here's a weird thing, man. And a lot of people really wouldn't give pro wrestling credit for a lot of this stuff, but like pro wrestling has long been the guinea pig for a lot of ways that sports have been consumed in America. I mean, you got to remember, WrestleMania was the first of its kind when it was a pay-per-view event, when, boxing wasn't really doing that. A lot of UFC wasn't really doing that. A lot of sports was not doing that until the WWE and Vince McMahon did it, putting shows on at Madison Square Garden like that, to that sort of scale, doing weekly cable television. I mean, they've seemed to be the guinea pig for a lot of things that end up going, nationwide when it comes to sports. And in addition to that, now we're in a whole new world where we don't know where we'll be able to congregate by the thousands anymore. Do you think that having no crowd this past WrestleMania added or subtracted to the overall show's presentation?
Both. Obviously, wrestling in particular is so dependent on the crowd, but I think in one way it helped was with the wrestling itself. As if you're just focusing on the matches, you really got to see the level of performance some of these superstars have. The ability to go through, tell the story with the physicality, and they really did that. And then it required them to be innovative, like you were just giving them credit for. I mean, there's been like replay mechanisms they've used in the past, broadcasting during commercial break. WWE has done before. Even the XFL, I think the first time around, they used some of that camera stuff in the NFL. So they were able to do the, post-production, I guess you could call it, on the Boneyard Match and the Firefly Funhouse match. Because that Boneyard Match to me was like, if we were going back to 2003 when things were straight to DVD, and it's like The Undertaker straight to DVD, it was like an Undertaker action movie. And the Firefly Funhouse match, I don't even know what that was, but it was like the WWE's experimental album. It was interesting and forward thinking, and it was a way to use the moment to capitalize on it. And the way I put it before, in a sense, I think it will be a time capsule, right? Because the WWE has the WWE Network, which is amazing. And my kids have gotten into it recently. In fact, my son Raj, he's 5. He has a finishing move he calls the Spine Crusher. And he likes to hit me with it and then go, "Is my finishing move fire?" I'm like, well, my ribs hurt a little bit. It's because we've been watching the old stuff. But, that's the kind of thing that you can gain from this opportunity, go back and dig in the crates, if you will. And they just did a great job as far as all that's concerned.
All right, let's dive into it more, man. Night one obviously had a lot of highlights. The triple threat ladder match might have stolen the show. Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens had a hell of a match with no crowd, and Kevin Owens in that big New Jack style dive off the WrestleMania sign. But like you said, everybody left night one of WrestleMania talking about the Boneyard match. Talk to me a little bit about this going forward for the history of professional wrestling. I mean, we're in the midst of watching a docuseries on The Undertaker, which is pretty much, I guess, starting to allude that, like, this really might be it for him. This might be his last match or his last sort of run in the WWE. And now they put out this Boneyard match, which, like you said, seemed like a straight-to-DVD action flick. But for the most part, a lot of people really enjoyed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it fit The Undertaker's character, right? The Undertaker's always sort of been a movie character, right? Or something. I remember when I was a kid, I'm like, wait, does he really come back from the dead? That can't be right? So he's always sort of fit that mythology. So I think it's a way to extend older wrestlers' careers, really, more than anything else, because he can't do real matches anymore. Let's be real about it, right? I mean, he's too old.
Yeah, man. I was watching the first look at his docuseries Last Ride on the WWE Network, and anybody who knows the Undertaker or has known of the Undertaker knows that he never lets people in. He never puts people, never brings cameras around. He just got Instagram like last year. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's one of those guys who has been kayfabe to the death. But, you're seeing just how much his year schedule goes from wrestling at WrestleMania to getting surgery right after WrestleMania to rehabbing for it just in time to get ready for the next WrestleMania. And that's his whole life. So now we got this new sort of like canon version of pro wrestling where it doesn't really matter. It's not really for championships or anything like that. It's just something entertaining. And I think a lot of the older performers, the Mick Foleys of the world, the Stings of the world, the Undertakers of the world, this can be something that leads them to another sort of chapter in their career where they don't necessarily have to get extremely hurt like they used to in live crowds.
Yeah, especially I think when the character is bigger than the performer in a sense, if you know what I mean. Like, because there are certain guys that you just want to see their in-ring work and they're lauded for that. But then there are, a character like The Undertaker. You ever see the monster truck shows? They have that grave digger truck.
Yes.
It's been around forever. The Undertaker, right? I mean, like, The Undertaker works for kids, works for old people. Everybody gets and understands what The Undertaker is.
It's like Spider-Man. It's like anyone can wear the mask. Like, anyone can wear that. Yeah. So I think that's a way that those sort of things can work. And then the other thing you mentioned, kayfabe and the like. I mean, it's a way to take people into weird idiosyncrasies of the business, which I didn't think they did as much in the Boneyard match, of course, but they definitely did it in the Firefly Funhouse match. I agree. So, in addition to the Boneyard match, what else do you think stole the show for WrestleMania for you? Was it the triple threat ladder match? And we're just talking night one here. What stole the show for you?
In night one, I think it had to be the ladder match. I thought the ladder match was well done. Like I said, I think there are two things from the WrestleMania that stood out. There was a couple of the missteps, maybe a match too long, the heavyweight matches or whatnot. But the two things that stood out were either the innovation, like the Boneyard match, or just the pure wrestling. And I thought the ladder match did a good job of that, like just telling them, first of all, ladder match always works, right? Have you ever been like, no, they're doing a ladder match?
You got John Morrison, the parkour king. You got Kofi Kingston, who will always find some weird, crazy way to innovate, flying through the air like a madman. And then, you got Jimmy Uso, who, shout out to him. I don't think I've ever seen a solo Jimmy Uso match, but between the banter and the hard-hitting nature of it, am I weird for kind of wanting to see like a solo Uso run sometime, maybe one time before they're done with their career?
Yeah, I mean, look, it gives you an interesting insight too. Plus the way they were almost mic'd up in a sense, right? You get to hear hopefully not too much of the spots. That's the right jargon, right? The spots being given out, but the storytelling in that sense as well, because generally with a crowd, you wouldn't hear that. So you lose some of that energy perhaps, but the fact that they were able to keep that energy through a match like that, I thought was really dope. It
was incredible, man. So night one kind of seemed like the teaser for things to come. I think night one really benefited from not having a whole lot of expectation. We kind of didn't know what we were getting into. But after, the action of Seth and KO, the action of the triple threat ladder match, I really like the women's tag team match. I think Asuka and Kairi Sane, the Kabuki Warriors, are like two of the most hilarious performers on the roster. And, of course, the Boneyard match set the stage for night two. And going into night two, now we had expectations. Now the big matches were coming up, the matches that we were talking about for months on end. You got Edge and Randy Orton, Cena and Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse match, Drew and Brock Lesnar, the five-way SmackDown women's title match. What match stood out before we get to the Firefly Funhouse match? Because this is obvious. This is going to take a lot of us for us to talk about. What match stood out to you on night two?
I thought the Charlotte Flair match. I thought her performance was really excellent, and it was another one of those ones where it was really told through the actual athleticism and the actual craft, right? And you also have to remember there's a lot of parachute fans for something like this. So there's a lot of people who, even in me to a degree, where you might not be following every story and every intricacy. You know some of the bigger name stars, and you know the business, if you will. So when you pop in and you're like, oh man, WrestleMania. Here's something that's not a rising death toll. Exactly. They keep counting. I don't want to see that number anymore. And I thought that match was really well done, and I thought it was a nice. You could tell on social media and the like too, like sort of a culmination for her and the achievements of her career.
Yeah, I feel like, and I sent this tweet out during the match. At what point do we start calling Charlotte Flair Mrs. WrestleMania? We know Shawn Michaels has been Mr. WrestleMania for the better part of the last 15 years. Charlotte Flair has had a moment every single WrestleMania, stolen the show, won a title. She's the first person in the history of the company to win the SmackDown, Raw, and NXT women's titles all at WrestleMania. Talk about her career retrospective at this point, because she went from being Ric Flair's daughter to like, oh, this might be like the best women's wrestler of all time.
It's like a gift and a curse, right? Because it's like Eminem being white. Like Eminem is white, so it helped his popularity, right? Because he's a white guy. But it also always would have people be like, yo, he's only this because he's white, right? Like, so you have to battle through both of those things. That's the same thing with Charlotte Flair. She's Ric Flair's daughter. So, of course, she's going to be elevated to a certain extent. But then that comes with the pressure of not just being Ric Flair's daughter. And I think she's really accomplished that. And when do you start doing it? Just start doing it, right? You started doing it. I've had a chance to talk to her on a couple occasions. Always came away impressed. She obviously cares about what she's doing out there. And again, I think that was the big takeaway for some of them is they were performing. I mean, these buzzwords we throw out like distraction and escape and all that. It used to feel like BS, but nowadays it's like, yep.
Yes, please.
Exactly right.
Anything but death and viruses, I'm down for. Hook it to my veins.
So I think they knew what the fans wanted, and they tried their best to give it to them because there's no cues to work with. So I think the truly gifted performers are the ones that you're going to have to trust in that regard. It's like when you have nothing from the crowd, you're flopping. When you have the laughs from the crowd, you're doing great. Wrestling is basically the same thing. So to be able to do it without that reassurance, I think comes with having the track record and comes with having the refs, and she's proven herself over and over.
All right, let's get into some of the bigger matches of the night. Edge and Randy Orton probably told the best story, I would say, going into WrestleMania, just as far as Edge's 9-year hiatus from neck surgery and coming back. That incredible WWE 24 documentary on the network. If you haven't gotten to see it, just like, I don't even think you need to be a wrestling fan to even appreciate just how well shot and the great job that they did for that documentary. And you got Randy Orton, who at this point is an all-time great and is performing at such a high level as far as convincing you that he's just a real piece of shit. So when it comes to Edge and Randy Orton, man, a lot of people are saying the match went on too long. It was a little too prodding. It was a lot going on with that match. What are your thoughts on Edge versus Randy Orton in the last man standing match?
Yeah, that was probably my least favorite match. I know wrestling fans probably really liked it. Like you said, it told a story, right? But, attention spans are still what they are. And I thought by the end of it, they might let fans back in the arena. Going on for a while. It wasn't bad. So I don't want to disrespect it because, there's a difference between it being like, it wasn't my favorite and it was trash. It certainly wasn't trash. It was really well done. They know what they're doing. I just think it could have been about 20 minutes shorter, maybe something like that, because it just felt like it was dragging and dragging. Maybe that's where you miss the fans and the spots being sort of the same in that scenario where they were backstage. There's only so many things they could do. And then when you have like a 10 count, it's going to be hard to keep the guy down for the 10 count. We know, you can kick out of 25 finishers in a row nowadays, right? 3. So a 10 count.
Just spam the comeback button on WWE 2K20. Just spam the hell out of that.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest momentum killer for me just as a viewer. But in the grand scheme of things, I understand its place and definitely respect to the performers. I just didn't think it landed perfectly.
Yeah, it almost felt like without Triple H on the card, you needed your obligatory 40-minute spectacle on that card. And I think Randy Orton's taken his place. But just thoughts on how you think Edge looked. I mean, he took 9 years off. He looked pretty good. And, you know, for a guy who had to retire almost a decade ago from neck issues, how did you think he looked personally?
Oh, I thought it looked great, right? I mean, like, how do these guys do this? That's another thing,
yeah.
You know, just in general. When I'm talking about watching my kids, my wife is like, why are you letting them watch this? You know, you know, like, you're destroying each other. That's a decent point. You know, I think the thing about wrestling is it's like, it's too violent for kids and too absurd for adults. So, you know, perfect. And
it's the perfect form of family entertainment. It's the perfect balance of absurdity. And this is really violent and no one should watch this.
But I think his performance goes to the heart of the issue about them going through with the show. The whole show must go on because clearly from a personal point of pride, he wanted to get back out there, even though medically it may not have been the best idea. We've seen that with him. We've seen it with Daniel Bryan and Shawn Michaels and so many people over the years, right? So I think the commitment to the craft again and to the fan base is admirable in a sense because that could not have been easy to do. And then he didn't even get the adulation that would have come with doing it in front of all the fans. So definitely respect him for that.
Yeah, man. He's the guy that I felt for the most as far as this entire pandemic taking over the world, because for a guy to work that hard to get back, especially after being told, you know, your life's work, the thing that you've worked your entire career for is taken away from you. You get it back. You had I was in Houston for the Royal Rumble at Minute Maid Park. And you got to remember, that was the same day Kobe Bryant passed away. So, like, the last thing I wanted to do was be at a wrestling show because I was sad as hell, depressed as hell. I just wanted to go home and be around my family. And then just hearing Edge's music, that big surprise in the Royal Rumble, I felt like how everybody in that crowd felt. We just needed something to cheer for. And that moment was it for me and for a lot of people. And I feel like Edge was kind of put back in that same position, just like times a million, where it was, you know, everybody needed something to cheer for. And, you know, I think Edge did what he had to do when it came to putting on that match. And hopefully he stays healthy and, you know, we get to see a little bit more of him as the years go on. The WWE Championship match, Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, Drew, another guy. I spoke about Edge being somebody I felt for, about not having that big WrestleMania moment. Drew McIntyre is another guy, a dude who was called the Chosen One when he first came in, you know, kind of lost his way, went to the Indies, became this, you know, badass sort of Scottish pirate sort of thing. And, you know, he's kind of, you know, some people just catch that fire. You know, Shawn Michaels had it one time. Seth Rollins had it one time. Some people just get that momentum and it doesn't stop. And Drew McIntyre seemed like he was having that. And, you know, he captured the world title last night against Brock Lesnar in a quick match that maybe went 6 or 7 minutes. What were your thoughts on Drew versus Brock? And Drew going forward as a world champion?
Yeah, I didn't mind that one or the Goldberg-Braun Strowman match, you know, especially in the context of how everything else was going on. Because, you know, we mentioned Charlotte Flair, we mentioned the ladder match, the big, long wrestling extravaganzas. Then you had the you know, sideshow / main event things that like the Boneyard, like the Firefly Funhouse, and to a degree the Last Man Standing match. So to have those big guys just pummel each other for a few minutes, I actually think worked in the grand scheme of the show, right? Yeah. You know, and again, for parachute fans, you have to remember there are the parachute fans who are coming. So they say F5. All right, cool. Big kick to the face. What does he call that thing again? You know, like
Claymore country.
Yeah. So I think that aspect of it worked with those particular performers, especially after everything that had come before it.
Yeah, man. So what are your thoughts on Drew necessarily being the guy right now? I mean, it's a tough, you know, it's tough for anybody to become the world champion for the first time and being told, like, here, you got to carry the ball for the company right now. It's just same as Braun Strowman. Here, you got to carry the ball for the company right now. But now they're in a position where nobody has ever had to perform in front of zero crowd, small arenas, It's an incredible time. So Drew as the world champion, Braun as the universal champion. Who do you think's better positioned for the future carrying that company?
Oof. Can I do a right-in answer?
Go for it. I
think it should be Bray Wyatt. I think he's the most interesting character, right? And there's a certain gravitas to what he's doing and the whole thing about it. So I think when it comes to who could be the position, I mean, almost as like the Thanos of WWE, if you will, and trying to unseat that, I think he's actually the one in the best position there. McIntyre, is in the vein of a Roman Reigns or somebody like that, looks the part, worked hard, all that, has the ability to perform, and nothing wrong with that. But to me, the most interesting guy is Bray Wyatt. Well,
you mentioned it, man. So let's get right down to it. The Firefly Funhouse. If the Boneyard Match was the 2 for $20 appetizers at Applebee's, the Firefly Funhouse was, the spicy rigatoni at Carbone. It was just everything that you want out of pro wrestling and things that you didn't know you needed. I truly believe the Firefly Funhouse delivered on. Bray Wyatt, John Cena, it almost served as a tribute to John Cena, but in the same way, kind of like a retrospective on his career, on Bray's career. And a lot of times you don't really get a chance to, fix your first impression or fix things that should have been happening. Like, we always do this thing with wrestling fans, right? We're always like, what's the one thing that happened at a wrestling event or a WrestleMania that you thought was the wrong call? And a lot of people thought Bray Wyatt should have gone over John Cena at WrestleMania 30 and started building Bray Wyatt to the new sort of like Undertaker mythical sort of character that, the WWE's been lacking since the Undertaker really can't do it anymore. Now you got this new character in The Fiend and this sort of reinvention of Bray Wyatt. And it is without a doubt the most talked about thing that has happened after WrestleMania, the day after. So I would love to know your thoughts on just that entire spectacle.
Yeah, I think it's a chance to do it with Bray Wyatt again, like I was just saying, like a do-over in that sense. But it's like the Boneyard Match only works maybe with the Undertaker because of the character. So you're telling an Undertaker fan fiction, if you will, or straight to DVD movie, as I put it. Yeah. This worked because of John Cena, right? Because John Cena's a star now. So you're really, there's the wrestling fans who have always followed John Cena and maybe had some issues with various points in his career, not turning heel, being elevated, whatnot. And then there's the casual fans who are like, oh, John Cena from the movies. So like the fact that it was being John Cena's story being told that way, I think works really well because he has achieved a level of fame that's big for pro wrestling and goes beyond pro wrestling a little bit. So I thought they did a really nice job with those devices for each of those characters. One, for the Undertaker being the character, and then 2, for John Cena being a celebrity, if you will, because I think that works for The Rock. It works for John Cena. It works for, a couple of other guys. But he's really one of the only people you could do it with. And considering the way it was done and not live, I thought they did as good a job as they possibly could. We were texting earlier, right? And you said, what's the line you're going with? I'm saying considering the circumstances or with all things considered.
With all things considered.
Anytime anybody asks you how you're doing, you have to answer that, well, all things considered, great. I think all things considered, it was very innovative, and that's the best way they could have handled both John Cena and The Undertaker.
Yeah, I mean, it almost tells like it only works with like iconic characters, right? So now the door's open for all these old timers, all these guys that you still love to see, but they just can't do what they used to do anymore. And I think it was like John Cena was the perfect blueprint for it because it told his entire career. It went from OVW as this musclehead, meathead guy to ruthless aggression to the little dig at Nikki Bella to, why he didn't turn heel and, this sort of alternate reality where he turns into Hollywood Hulk Hogan and, comes out in the NWO shirt. And, then you finally have the moment that goes back to WrestleMania 30 where we all thought this is the time to turn John Cena heel. It's time for him to, be the guy that, Bray Wyatt said that he always was. So now that we're here and now that the match took place, do you think the next time we see John Cena, and given Bray Wyatt's history, every time you face Bray Wyatt, you become a different person. Daniel Bryan was a heel after Bray Wyatt, then he became a face. Finn Balor was a face after Bray Wyatt, then he became a heel and went to NXT. The Miz was a face when he faced Bray Wyatt, and then became a heel. The next time we see John Cena, will we see Hollywood heel John Cena in the WWE ring?
I think there's some way to do it that's not so much on the nose. Like, is there a change in his character that can happen that's not a full – because you're probably right. They missed the chance to, do the heel turn when the timing was right? So is there a way to bring John Cena back somewhere in that nebulous area where you're not sure – because he's not, out there, the righteous this guy. But he's also not at the same time just, blatantly the bad guy. Is there a way to touch on those gray areas with John Cena? Because I think that's what they were hinting at with the apple and all that stuff. Yeah, so I wonder if there's a way to change that character some to lean into that without doing the full flip.
I agree. I think that they've done it well. I think there's going to be a time where they're going to need him again. There's going to be SummerSlam coming up. Obviously, WrestleMania Los Angeles next year in the SoFi Stadium, God willing, is going to be, I think that's the time where they pull out all the stops. And like we said, all things considered, this event went without a hitch. And now we're at the point where, WrestleMania Los Angeles is going to be one of the biggest live event spectacles in the history of that company. They pretty much punted on this year. They're going into a brand new stadium. We got, and I feel like right now, anybody who's connected to WWE, everything's in play. You got Gronk, who's the 24/7 champion now. You got The Rock, who you're in his backyard. You got John Cena, who by that time that event happens, we'll be at 10 Fast, 10 Furious with John Cena and The Rock and Vin Diesel and all these other things. You got Roman Reigns, who for the first time in years wasn't at WrestleMania. There's so many things in play for WrestleMania Los Angeles. Give me your entirely too early predictions for WrestleMania Hollywood.
Oh, my man, I don't even know what's happening tomorrow. Like I said, I think did they not set it up for another Cena Wyatt match, like an actual in the ring match? I think that would probably headline it. Yeah, I think that's the main event of WrestleMania if I'm predicting forward. Maybe even whether or not they figure out a way to elevate him to the Fiends at the top of the company or not. To me, the most interesting match they could do at WrestleMania now would be those two, but in the ring this time.
I agree. I think right now there's so much on the table. You got, Drew's probably still going to be one of the guys when this year comes back. So maybe you got Drew and Roman Reigns happening somewhere. I know, if I'm The Rock or if I'm Vince McMahon, I'm giving The Rock an offer he can't refuse. You see what we just did with John Cena? He didn't need to.
Do The Rock, Hogan, and Austin. In
something, you know what I mean? Like, give me Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Firefly Funhouse. Give me Hulk Hogan in the Boneyard Match. Give me all these iconic characters that I still care about, that I still want to see in these pre-taped Hollywood spectacles that could, and mind you, it might be a little different watching it in a live crowd, but I still think right now they've broken new ground as far as how they can make something so dope in such dire circumstances.
And those serve as like interludes or interstitials to the rest as well once you have a crowd back.
Right. Totally agree. Robin, man, thank you so much for joining me on my WrestleMania hangover show with Say Less. This will be live in a few minutes. We'll put this out. Robin, is there anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, man. Everybody, all things considered. That's the name. We should do a new show. All things considered. Everybody, stay calm, stay safe, and hopefully we can, have fun at some point again.
I hope so too, brother. Robin, thank you so much, bro. We'll catch you later. Stay safe. Keep your hands clean. You can follow him at Robin Lundberg on Twitter. He's on Sports Illustrated. He does Mad Dog Radio. He is one of the best guys in the business. Thank you so much, Rob. Stay safe. Give the best to your family, man.
Appreciate the kind words, dude. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. All right, and that is a wrap for today's episode of Say Less. We tried something new today, so hopefully you guys like it. The audio will still be out for everybody subscribed on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, all that type of stuff. But if you want to watch the video, obviously, we can't be in studios like we used to be. Technology is our best friend right now. So you could go to youtube.com/Kazim. That is my personal YouTube page. The videos will be available right here for everybody who wants to watch it. Thank you so much. We'll be back tomorrow for Say Less. Peace.